Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Michael Siggins, and I'm the publisher of the Channel Pro Network. Thanks for being here. Channel Pro Network includes websites, events, and a monthly magazine for managed service providers and IT integrators. Our mission is really quite simple. It's to provide you with information, insights, and resources that you can use to run a more successful business. Today's webinar is a perfect example of that kind of info to help your business. Our topic today is Step on the Gas, Drive Your SMB Security Practice into 2021. And it's presented by Exclusive Networks and Fortinet. Our special guests today will be Phil Wilhelm. Phil is General Manager of Sales for Fortinet's SMB division. And then following his presentation, we have a very special demo that we're going to do, and that's going to feature Lou Gencarelli, also from Fortinet. Before we begin the prezo, a few quick housekeeping items. Please get involved. We always encourage your feedback and questions because it makes for a much better experience for everybody today. Those of you in the audience may ask questions via the Q&A module, and you'll find it down at the bottom of the screen. And as I mentioned, stay tuned after the initial presentation because we're going to be doing a demo. So we're also going to follow up tomorrow with additional info and a link to the recording. Now I'm going to turn things over to our presenters. Phil, we'll start with you. Please take it away, Phil.
All right, Michael, my man, thank you so very much for the invitation to spend some time with the Channel Pro Network. Channel Pro Network does an amazing job helping so many of you out there learn and build your businesses and also connect with each other. It's a fantastic community. And I just wanted to echo what Michael just talked about with getting involved and to help that effort. What you're looking at here on the slide are some of the best shoes out there on the market. I own a pair. I wear them quite often. And for the first three questions that we get after my portion of today, I will be setting up those people, if they so choose, with a pair for themselves. So please keep that in mind. Jot down your questions as I make my way through, maybe 35 or 40 minutes. And then the first three people will each get set up with a pair of these amazing Vans shoes. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I am Phil Wilhelm, and as Michael said, I am the General Manager of SMB Sales at Fortinet, and I've been in the industry for quite some time, going on 15 plus years. And 13 of those 15 years were spent at value-added resellers, companies like SoftChoice and SHI in particular. And, I held a variety of sales and leadership roles at both organizations, but I spent a lot of my career focused on this small and mid-sized business market, right? The SMB market. For 3 of those years when I was at SHI, I led a sales team of hundreds of folks that were focused exclusively on the SMB market. And so I feel that I have a very strong understanding of this segment of the market, a segment of the market that I know so many of you out there are laser focused on. And with good reason. We can have a huge impact. All of us can, as sales professionals, as technical professionals, we can have a huge impact on these companies in that part of the market. But I came to Fortinet in June of last year, primarily because I saw the big time commitment that Fortinet has to building out this SMB space in the US. And that's coming directly from our CEO, Ken Z. We know that we will be the dominant player in cybersecurity in the SMB space. And so that was a big pull to get me over to Fortinet. And man, I love working at Fortinet for a few reasons. I mean, first, it is that commitment that Fortinet has to the SMB space, which I'm proud to lead and humbled to lead. But I would also say, secondly, it's because of the amazing people that we have at Fortinet. One of my responsibilities at Fortinet is recruiting and hiring. And what you're looking at on the screen are the so-called leadership and success principles that I use and my leadership team uses throughout our recruiting and interview process. And we are laser focused on these, laser focused on finding people that have the right kind of attitude and effort, people that are naturally positive and they have that gritty work ethic, people that take a very strong and even extreme sense of ownership of their business, people that don't procrastinate, but they dive right in today. They don't wait until tomorrow. People that never settle as it relates to culture matters, things like diversity and inclusion and fairness. And then also, just covering the SMB space, where there are tens of thousands of companies out there that need our help, and hundreds of partners out there like yourself that need our help. We have so many details that we have to address. We always find people that are highly organized and they know how to set the priority for their day and their week. And so obviously, the technology is paramount, and that's where we're going to spend the majority of our time today. But this is also a people business, and I'm so proud of the people that I get to work with every day. So I just wanted to quickly share that. Now, as it relates to the technology, this is reason number 3 that I love working at Fortinet. You're just looking at a few of our many Gartner Magic Quadrants where we have been named more often than not a leader in certain spaces. As you see on the left-hand side of the slide, going back to fall of 2019, that's the Magic Quadrant for network firewalls. You can see Fortinet circled up there, a leader in that Magic Quadrant, and also taking a stronger position compared to some very, very big household names and brands that are up there. In the middle of the screen, we see the Magic Quadrant for WAN Edge infrastructure, in other words, SD-WAN. This one is only a few months old. And again, we are in a leadership position. And then you see the other Magic Quadrant over there on the right-hand side for wired and wireless LAN access infrastructure being named as a visionary. I'll say this many times over the next 30, 35 minutes, but we have the most complete portfolio in the industry for cybersecurity and networking products. And I'm really proud to present on many of those products today. So let's also just have a quick moment to say congratulations to all of you out there that have joined here today, because congratulations on being curious about how you can better deliver solutions to your customers and help them grow. Whether you're the president or the CEO of your own value-added reseller or a managed service provider, or if you're an emerging sales professional at one of those organizations, maybe a technical pre-sales expert or a technical post-sales delivery expert. It's imperative that each of you are always looking to maybe adopt new technology into your portfolio so that you can drive both profitability and also customer satisfaction for all of your customers. And also, I would just say congratulations, because if you're here, it's showing a commitment on your part to the most relevant topic in technology today, and that is quite simply protecting and securing your data. Maybe you're here and you're going to spend about an hour, maybe hour and 15 minutes total with us, because you realize how important a security breach is. You realize that if one of your customers experiences a breach, there's a very high likelihood that they will have to close their doors temporarily, maybe even permanently. And you're concerned about what a breach like that could mean for their business or even for your business by extension. And then just one more note before we look at the agenda on the next slide. Maybe you're here today because of the support from Exclusive Networks. Exclusive Networks is a huge partner of Fortinet's, and this event would not be possible without them, and certainly all of the growth that Fortinet has experienced, not just in the SMB space, but in the commercial space, SLED, et cetera. So much of that would not be possible without Exclusive Networks. So just a quick word of thanks and support for all of the amazing work that they do. So let's move on and check out the agenda for the remaining time that I have with you. I really wanted to start with talking about Fortinet in the SMB space so that you understand what we're doing today and what our plans for growth are. Also, we're going to talk about the challenges facing small and mid-sized businesses today. Some are technology related, some are not technology related. And then I want to share with you some results that we received back about 3.5 months ago from a very significant and wide-reaching survey that both our customers and our prospects participated in. Some eye-opening data there. And then I want to talk about this phrase called engineered for complete protection, because I believe that is the key for each of you to drive significant profitability and also customer satisfaction within your own territory. And then I want to share some best practices. There are 4 things that emerging Fortinet partners do consistently that are helping them grow their cybersecurity business exponentially year over year. And then we're going to hand it off and do the live demo as well. So with that, let's get into just one slide at the highest level of who is Fortinet. We are the #1 cybersecurity company in the world, the #1 pure play cybersecurity company. We're massive, over 7,000 employees. I don't have any slideware on this, but just check out what our stock price has done, what our market cap has done over the last 3 to 4 years. We are the largest and also the fastest growing in this space, with nearly 3 times as many patents as our nearest competitor. That's not a typo. I know that sounds cheesy to say, but it's not a typo. More than 3x the number of patents of our nearest competitor. The amount of third-party validation and praise that we receive is so significant that can't be understated. Can't be overstated. As we just saw the slide there on the Gartner Magic Quadrants. And then this other final bullet point here is huge, because this is the entry point to so many companies, especially in the small and mid-sized space, that next-gen firewall, the Fortigate. We are the most widely deployed next-gen firewall on the planet. So that is who we are at a high level globally. But let's talk about a segment that is a bit closer to all of our hearts, and that is the SMB segment in the US. So this is a look at my business. First, at Fortinet, just for everyone out there, a lot of the data that I'm going to share with you and some of the insights that we've learned, they do come from SMB accounts, but the way that Fortinet defines small and mid-sized businesses, it's by annual revenues. So we use 100 million in annual revenue as the line of demarcation between the SMB division and then our commercial division. So we have approximately 87,000 companies in our sales force that meet that definition. These are all industries and verticals. This does not include SLED. That's a separate conversation. But it is a massive market, as I'm sure you are all aware. Now, what our data also tells us, and this is really interesting because this has implications for cybersecurity, this has implications for SD-WAN as well, which I believe to be a cybersecurity topic. But 40% of all of the companies in our sales force have at least 4 locations. And a common misconception about this SMB market is that it's very much, mom and pop, 1 location, 6 employees, maybe 10 million in annual revenues. And yeah, we do have some of those, but this was an eye-opener for me and my leadership team when we ran some queries and realized how many of these 87,000 companies have multiple locations. We have about 17,000 customers today. So you can do the arithmetic. We have my sales team has a ton of white space and just an amazing opportunity in front of us. From a people perspective, we have 70 frontline sellers today, 20 solution engineers to support the cause, and then about another 30 people in support roles. So, it's about 120 people today just for the SMB segment in the US. If we were doing this presentation 12 months from now, those numbers would be nearly double what they are today. And you see the growth rates for my business on the right-hand side of the slide. Why am I sharing this with you? It's important to me that you understand that we are coming after the SMB market in the United States of America. And the people that we have, but also the solutions that we have, we are so relevant. We're more relevant now than we have ever been. And we have the commitment from our top level to continue investing in people and products and processes. We are going to own this SMB market for cybersecurity in the coming years. So hopefully we will all be spending a lot more time together in the future. Okay, so now let's shift gears and talk about challenges for the SMB space. Number one is growth, and number two is technology, and they're tightly related. But let's talk about growth first. I believe that growth, that is the number one most important thing in this segment. The companies in this segment, they don't have the advantages of things like, teams and teams of lawyers, protecting them, or things like patent protection, protecting them. They don't have the cozy relationships with the largest banks in the world. They don't have lobbyists giving them political protection. They don't have years and years of established brands in their community as well. So the point on growth is that the companies in this space, they need growth. They have to grow. I mean, everything in their own, relatively small boardroom conversations, it centers on how to grow. I mean, they cannot withstand 4 or 5 consecutive quarters of losses, right? They will be out of business. This is very different from the Fortune 500. So I will give you the same, sometimes unsolicited advice that I give, all of the folks on my team, and that is this. When you're having conversations with these companies, whether it's the initial meeting or whenever you're proposing a more specific bill of materials for them, always lead with the word growth because you will be speaking their language. Now, the other side of the equation is technology. And they're related because, yes, technology drives growth. We have some data on this. Suffice it to say that technology is the single biggest driver of growth today. There's a lot of studies that have been run by large companies like Oracle, Salesforce, I think it's Adobe and some others. And all of these surveys, they're pointing to the fact that the early technology adopters out there, the people that are most likely to say that they agree with the following statements, quote, "We can adapt quickly to changing market conditions versus technology laggards." So the companies that say that they strongly agree with that statement, going back all the way to 2015, what these surveys and studies have found is that the organizations that agree with that statement, the ones that were pro-technology, they had a higher rate and depth of technology adoption, they grew revenue at 2x the rate of the laggards in this in these studies, and that is significant. Also, the leaders in this space, they were adopting artificial intelligence at a rate of 98% compared to the laggards in the organization adopting it at a rate of only 42%. So just a huge disparity there, and a really good proof point of how technology is the number one driver of growth today. I would also say that the senior leadership at these smaller and mid-sized companies, I mean, clearly they're thinking and rethinking a lot about their businesses right now with everything that's happened with COVID especially. But a big part of that rethinking, that is centered on technology. So, we've established that technology, is the biggest driver of growth. And I would also say, though, that has two sides of a coin, right? And those two sides of the coin are as follows. Yes, it fuels growth, but secondly, that just means that the attack surface has expanded significantly. So here's an example, right? With recent shifts, a lot of brick and mortar companies that were experimenting with delivering, e-commerce experiences for the first time, they have learned a ton because a lot goes into supporting an e-commerce channel. But what does that entail, and what are the security implications of this? Well, some things to consider. I mean, it's very common to see an uptick in DDoS activity around the holidays, right? To take down company sites and then block them from making any updates. So a very basic and initial question that has to be asked is, how are they using even a web application firewall as a first step, right? That can be a very new thing to a lot of small and mid-sized businesses. But what about phishing and credential theft? With a bit of R&D, it's not hard for an attacker to mimic, one of your customers' websites, and then get them to sign in and then, fix it, and then eventually decide it's just taken over. What about SQL injections, right? Slamming the input fields with erroneous commands to just, have the attacker sort of brute force their way in, right? And then not to mention the inevitable patching, issues and other updates. So while this is just one example, right, an e-commerce example, each technological innovation that we look to implement for our customers, that has security considerations, and we have to help our customers understand that they have to pay attention to that. The world is far more tech savvy than it was even 5 years ago. Data security and privacy, they're really playing out on the big screen. So now let's talk about budgeting. And what is going to get the budgeting first for a lot of SMBs? Is it the technology that helps them grow the bottom line? Or is it security for that technology? Before I get into that, I just want you to consider two more data points we're looking at here on the screen. First, 75% of people would boycott their favorite retailer if it didn't keep their personal data safe. And the bottom of the screen, 73% would be willing to pay more to online services and businesses to ensure that their data isn't used inappropriately. This is a great proof point of how important this is. So, my goal, and I hope it's your goal as well, working together in this space, is that these two critical pieces that drive our customers' businesses, that they can live in harmony. That's how I look at it. Because data is shifting and it's integrating at an explosive rate, right? There is no more perimeter, quote unquote. Data is ubiquitous. And again, the attack surface has grown so much and it will continue to grow. Now, the good news is that cybersecurity has greatly improved our ability to stay ahead of our adversaries. And so if your customers have the right tools and if they're thinking about their approach in the right way, that can mean really great things for you. And again, these things are not just important to Fortune 500s, but with that growth mindset in the SMB space, I would argue that it's even more important in our segment. So now, to give some emphasis to what I just spoke to, let's look at the things that smaller and mid-sized businesses are facing from both an IT and a security perspective. And I mentioned at the top that we did a big survey of both Fortinet customers, but also Fortinet prospects a few months ago. And I wanted to share just some of the results with you. It's a bit of an eye chart. That's why I have the summary box on the right-hand side of the slide. So here's the question that we asked. We got about 350 responses. How do you rank your top security or compliance fears? Far and away, number one, ransomware. Ransomware has gotten so much press. And I think sometimes when a topic gets so much press, it feels like it's just merely a talking point on a marketing slide. But what we're seeing here is that this ransomware thing that's happening is huge, and it's affecting a lot of people's decisions on the IT side. Number two, compliance or security fear of stolen customer information, followed by number three, stolen company information. So these are the things that are ranked right at the top. I believe the next slide, if memory serves, is talking about, here we go, the additional concerns, being how attackers are going to breach their security. Far and away, it was credential theft, right? Very, very, very common thing that's happening. But I wanted to go to slide 17, Alan or Lou, if y'all are with me on that. So how would you rank your top concerns when it comes to implementing and maintaining security? Well, number one, it is around cost. The inability to afford an end-to-end solution, which means people are going to have to make some sacrifices. Then number two, automation and integration. And then number three, visibility. If we can go to the next slide, please. And projects they're currently involved in, or what projects do they foresee for the balance of 2020? And again, this was done in the September timeframe. Number one, upgrading existing network infrastructure. And the last thing that we're going to talk about today is the Fortigate in conjunction with our switching product and then our access points. That is why, when we look at the top answer on this slide and we think about the relevance of Fortinet in the SMB space today, it is because of the way people are answering this question right here. We go to the next slide. All right, so to recap, we talked about how we need to address the biggest challenges in the SMB segment, that being growth, and then technology and the somewhat dark side of technology given the expanded attack surface. And then all of the data that we've seen is telling us how big of a concern ransomware is, how costs and budgets for IT is a concern as well. Visibility into all of those security platforms is a major concern. And then that most important project for SMBs today is upgrading their network infrastructure. So just a quick mental recap before we move on. We can head to the next slide, please. So what does this mean for Fortinet? Where do we fit in? How do we help your customers? And I think more importantly, how do we help all of you? Next slide, please. We can just build this one out. I think it has 3 bullet points on there. Here we go. Intuitive security, simplified management, and maximum value. So this is the message of Fortinet in the SMB space. When my reps are on the phone with customers, when my technical teams are working through projects, this is what is resonating with small and mid-sized businesses. Whenever we say intuitive security, I mean, that's all about integration, automation, efficacy. Simplified management. This is all about visibility and deployment and control. Maximum value. I mean, this is all about your customers' budgets, their finance teams, and it's you helping them make smarter financial decisions. So let's go to the next slide. And we're just going to talk for a few minutes about each of these 3 areas. So intuitive security. Now, with a concept like intuitive security, I want to start by saying that, unfortunately, not everybody is as proactive when it comes to protecting their business from cyber attacks as they should be. I really hate to say it, but I know firsthand there are still a significant number of SMB companies out there who just simply don't believe that they're actually a potential target for cybercrime. Some of the data that we've seen suggests that percentage of folks that don't even believe that they're a target, that's as high as 60%. And that's staggering. Most of these small and mid-sized companies, they don't believe that they're significant enough, right? Financially large enough to warrant the attention of attackers. But the reality is, cybersecurity has gotten stronger, and it's even more difficult for hackers to hack into the largest enterprises with layer upon layer of security, with huge teams of cybersecurity specialists to boot. It costs a lot of money for the hackers to make that happen. So instead, they're shifting their focus to small and mid-sized businesses. So the hackers out there, the attackers out there, they're banking on people like network admins for an SMB company or an IT generalist, maybe even sometimes a help desk person. They're relying on those types of folks just simply not patching something. They're banking on an SMB style company not investing anything more in security than whatever came on the laptop, as an example, whatever came on the laptop when they bought it, or whatever came on the router that they maybe bought off of Amazon. And this works, unfortunately. It works for the hackers time and time again. So I want to share some stats with you on cyber attacks. But first, a quick note. I believe that when someone or a company is a victim of an attack, it's an embarrassing situation, right? It's sort of a shame on you for not having something as simple as two-factor authentication to prevent credential theft. Then if word gets out, if it becomes slightly public, if the press gets involved, it makes things look even worse. Somebody could lose their job. It's embarrassing. So the bottom line is, in my opinion, when you see data on breaches, that's typically underreported. So let's go to the next slide and consider some data. Okay, so this is from last year, 2019. 43% of attacks were targeted at small or mid-sized businesses. And ransomware specifically, that was targeting SMB companies 71% of the time. And of all of those targeted ransomware campaigns at small and mid-sized businesses, 1 out of 5 were successful. I mean, those numbers are staggering. So ransomware is by far the most lucrative means of extorting money from a company. But usually the cost of the ransom, that pales in comparison to the loss of revenue from downtime for that company. And then also potentially the consulting hours, sometimes the overtime hours to dig in and figure out what happened, how it happened, how to fix it, et cetera. So let's go to the next slide, please. So I would say that a security platform, it needs to be smart. Now at Fortinet, we use the word intuitive instead of smart, but they're almost synonymous. So a security platform, it needs to use machine learning to understand what's happening and to have the automation to reduce the number of cycles for your customers to see what's going on, but to also combat some of those modern tools that the attackers are going to use. So the platform needs to be intuitive. Now, to that point, Fortinet has built one of the most secure networks of threat intelligence available on the market. We have hundreds of thousands of customers across the globe. I want to repeat that. Fortinet has hundreds of thousands of customers across the globe. And each of those customers, they're using a slightly different combination of all of our products and security offerings. So what that means is there are hundreds of millions of devices and security services from Fortinet. They're filtering, they're analyzing files and traffic. And then that data that's collected is further amplified and augmented with third-party intelligence feeds. So we have a massive amount of information. So there are two things that Fortinet does with all of that information. First, we spend a lot of time, a lot of effort developing algorithms to detect attacks. So we're gathering immense amounts of information on both potential attacks and actual attacks around the globe. Now, second, we quickly put that information in your hands or in your customers' hands, actually. We put that information in their hands in context. So while some security vendors require the end user to manually update their threat intelligence, right, going device by device, location by location, we don't do that. Just one example I want to share with you. It's a product called FortiSandbox Cloud. And this is where we disseminate the information that's collected around the world in literally a matter of minutes, so that any Fortinet device or Fortinet service knows what to look for, and they can analyze any incoming unknown threat. So to net this out, basically the very large global Fortinet customer base ends up being your advantage and your customer's advantage. So what you're looking at on the screen and what I just described, I mean, that is essentially the backbone of what we call intuitive security. We hop to the next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about simplified management. So, I mean, clearly the security platform, it has to be smart and intuitive, or, you know, what's the point? But secondly, if customers can't deploy it, if they can't see it, if they can't communicate with it, then not much progress has been made. So we can't talk about simplified management, in my opinion, without discussing a very important question that virtually all of your customers have wrestled with over the years. And the question is this: do the pros of a multi-vendor solution outweigh the cons, right? From things like increased management, oversight, integration. In practice, a multi-vendor environment creates so many more variables and potential issues. We find that the multi-vendor approach just takes up more time to manage and configure, and is often going to lead to vulnerabilities. So here are some very basic and effective questions that I think should be leading your sales conversations. Things like, how many different security solutions do you have in play? Across how many locations? Across how many vendors? How effectively do those solutions work together, Mr. Customer? And then how many people do you have to oversee everything? Those are the most basic questions, but those are the questions that my sales team is asking on pretty much every Zoom call or phone call that they get on. Go to the next slide, please. So let's look at how customers stack up for those questions. So compiled from a few different surveys, what we're seeing is that for companies between 500 and 1,000 employees, okay, that's the data set, roughly 70% of those companies surveyed, they have between 2 and 5 security vendors. Now, 20% have between 6 and 10, but check this out. 10% of those companies, right in that 500 to 1,000 user end user space, they have between 11 and 20 security vendors. So these small and mid-sized businesses are being asked to do so much with so few people on staff. So why not consider a single security platform with simplified management? If we go to the next slide, please. I mean, we have the most complete security offering available on the market. If we just build out this slide, I believe. Yep, you can hit down, I think 3 times. Yeah, thank you. So I mentioned this earlier, but we do in fact have the most complete security offering available on the market. But what's key is that it was not built through mergers and acquisitions. We have a very aggressive built from the ground up approach so that our products actually work together. The last thing we want, because we know how frustrating it is when an end user at XYZ company of a few hundred employees, they are at the end of the day stuck holding a bag of disparate parts from a security perspective. Now, this ground up approach, that has allowed us to pioneer the idea of converging networking and security devices like our next-gen firewall, IPS, and even SD-WAN. All of that being converged into a single appliance, a next-gen firewall appliance. Now, this approach allows Fortinet to control the next-gen firewall and switches and access points using the same policy so that the switches and access points have effectively become extensions of the next-gen firewall ports. That's enabling us at Fortinet to have a single screen management platform that allows that person to manage everything from a single cloud-based platform that can troubleshoot from anywhere. I mean, in my opinion, this is what we mean by that phrase, simplified management. So if we go advance on this slide, and yeah, I think we can go forward one more. We're just going to skip ahead to maximum value. I think we lost a few minutes with all of my laptop blue screen issues. Okay, so let's talk about maximum value. Now, you know, intuitive security, simplified management, I think we all agree, we're probably all nodding our heads. I mean, those are great things. But if your customers can't afford it, And then I would even say, if you in the partner community, if you can't be profitable off of it, then who really cares? So, year after year, we've seen budget increases that have been earmarked for cybersecurity initiatives. And according to different reports and surveys, the recent adoption of many companies to a more permanent or even hybrid work from home situation, that has a lot of people thinking that budgets for cybersecurity are going to be even higher in 2021 and 2022. So going back to a 2019 survey, the State of the CIO survey, to be specific, regardless of company size, so this is SMB all the way up to large enterprise, on average, 15% of a company's overall budget was being dedicated to IT security. 15% is the barometer that you should use. That's what you should assume when you're going into conversations. In that same survey, about 25% of people responded that they were even using 20% as the starting point to determine the cybersecurity budget. I mean, that is just huge, huge money. So I'm not going to debate if that 15% is enough or 14% or 20%. I mean, that's for you to discuss with your clients and for them to decide internally. But I do want to mention the survey that Fortinet conducted. It was a few slides back, where one of the biggest concerns was when the respondents told us that their top issue was a lack of budget and resources, and they were concerned they were going to have to make trade-offs. So on the topic of trade-offs, let's go forward one slide, and let's talk about trade-offs. I mean, there's necessary evils in life, right? Especially when it comes to resourcing your customers' departments, when it comes to them resourcing their own departments. And what's really tough when it comes to cybersecurity is your customers are forced to make trade-offs that raise their risk profile. So if the roll of the dice from a hacker lands against your customer, they're looking at financial penalties. And I get it. Some companies have higher risk appetites because they're chasing that growth. But our message at Fortinet is that our DNA is built around the concept that the trade-offs that our end customers make, they won't have to be as dramatic. And one of our goals is to enable all of you to help your customers get the security they need that fits within their budget. So on the point about budget, let's go forward one slide, and I want to talk about the FortiOS. We can, I think, go back one slide, pardon me. There we go. Yeah, let's just, we can just leave it on that slide. So FortiOS, this is our operating system. And it's a big part of how we're driving down our customers' costs. One of the biggest sources of runaway IT costs is when the security products, they're essentially disparate products that are not properly communicating with each other. Right? Their policies contradict, their workflows contradict, the data that's being harvested, it's not promptly shared, and they have to be managed across multiple platforms that look and feel different. So with FortiOS, this is the underlying code and the architecture behind everything that we do, and it's based on almost 20 years of innovation, being organically built from the ground up. There's that ground up phrase again. So because all of our products are working from the same base position, or OS, they're naturally communicating effectively. And they're allowing data and security elements across our customer's organization to be very tightly integrated. So, other large platform vendors are claiming that their underlying OS is great too, and it might be, but the truth is the way that they have approached mergers and acquisitions really means that things are not as tightly integrated as they could be. So let's skip through the next slide, and I want to go to the last slide on this topic around maximum value. Go to one more, around your own profitability. And, it's important, this whole notion of affordability is important for two reasons. Number one, it gets back to the trade-offs that I talked about. But we also need to have an affordable product line for you, the partner, so that you can build in enough profitability so that you are growing your business as well? So now this is a very important question that's on the slide, and I'm not the first. I am not here to advise you on how you should price the final bill of materials to your customers. What I can share with you is a bit of anecdotal feedback when we have very tight relationships with some of our top partners, and we start asking them, after a deal closes, where they priced that deal. And they're sharing that, voluntarily sharing that information back with us. I have reason to believe that our partners, they are not charging enough for the value that they're bringing to the end customer. We have so many advantages working for us to keep our own cost of product low. It's really important that our partners are building in plenty of profitability on top of our price to them. So if we head over to the next slide, I want to share a customer example, because this is, go to the next slide, please. That was just a summary there. And we can build this out, hit down a couple of times. So this is a project that's still ongoing, which is why I can't share the actual name of this credit union. But I love this example because we are seeing this almost exact scenario so many times in 2020 across all of my sales reps. So this is a credit union. It's up in the state of Wisconsin, a little over 300 employees, and they have 5 sites. So the first project that we had with this end user account, this company, was back in about a year and a half ago, so spring 2019. And it was a very straightforward initial purchase, something that we see at least 80% of the time, right? The Fortigate has an amazing reputation, and that's usually where most people make their first purchase. So they bought 5 Fortigates. It was the 60E, and that was about it. But they only had 1 year of support and services, which then led us to have more conversations with them in 2020. So we started talking about their support and services and renewing that on a multi-year situation. And then we started having conversations around infrastructure updates. Remember from the survey results that I shared a few slides back, where infrastructure updates was the #1 most popular, most common project in the second half of 2020. Another example of that. So they were looking to add some switches and some access points as well. Now, to help that project, we started talking about CTAP. That's an acronym, CTAP. It stands for Cyber Threat Assessment Program. We have 3 different flavors of that complementary assessment, and we just completed 2 different assessments, one for next-gen firewall and a separate assessment for SD-WAN. So now, coming out of those assessments, you can see on the last bullet point, all of the opportunities that my sales rep and our partner have jointly uncovered. So what's the impact to the partner for this one account? Well, it's a healthy gross profit on the product, services revenue for them on the implementation and the corresponding GP from those services engagements. It's our 40 rewards incentives for the partner. I'll explain that in a second. And then we also have channel incentives on the table for our cyber threat assessment program. And what we're really talking about with the Fortigate and the switches and the access points, the more proper term for that is what we call secure office networking. So all of this information is available on our partner portal. You're just looking at a simple image of it over on the right-hand side. But these 3 products together as a solution, this represents probably 2/3 of our business in the SMB space. And I can't stress enough that this needs to be the starting point for you as you build out your own competencies around Fortinet, but it also needs to be the starting point more often than not for all of your customer conversations. Help them secure the network. We go to the next slide, please. Just wanted to end before we turn it over to the demo with some best practices on Fortinet. And there's 4 things. First, and this is table stakes, but the partner portal. Partnerportal.fortinet.com. That website will be included in the follow-up materials for this presentation, but deal reg, that happens on Partner Portal. And all of the collateral that you need to be successful, all of that happens on Partner Portal. So that is the starting place. The Fortinet partners that are serious about building their business with us and through us, their technical folks, their sales folks, they have partnerportal.fortinet.com saved as a favorite, and they are in that content daily. Second, it's the 40 Rewards program. So this is also leveraged through the Partner Portal, and this is our program, a channel program, to reward our partners for various things, to reward them for continuing education and building out their own certifications, to reward them for not just selling the Fortigate, but for selling things like secure office networking, right? The Fortigate plus the switches and access points. We have a whole point accumulation system within this program, and then for doing different things, and like I just mentioned, and then those points can be converted into cash dollars for you or your organization. Number 3 is CTAP, the Cyber Threat Assessment Program that I just talked about briefly. I have my next slide is on that. And then finally, the NSE certifications. Those certifications are critically important. I encourage all of you to have your sales folks get NSE certified from level 1 up to level 3, and then have your technical resources at your organization focus on levels 4 through 8 of the NSE. If we go to the next slide, this is my last one on CTAP, and just a couple of things to share on this. First, the Cyber Threat Assessment Program, this is at no cost to the end customer. Okay, these assessments help them understand their vulnerabilities and really just get facts about their current situation. It ultimately gives them a clear report, a deliverable that they can show to the business stakeholders at their company on why security budgets need to be increased, and then also what happens, what are the consequences if those budgets aren't increased. So this assessment program is a way to help you help your customer find budget. Usually people think that these assessments are designed for larger companies. That's not the case. 93% of Fortinet's CTAPs are run with smaller mid-sized companies. More than half the time, we end up finding significant application vulnerabilities. More than 40% of the time, there's active malware in their network. So it's less than 7 days of monitoring. It can all be done remotely, so it's COVID friendly. It's no interruption to your customer's production network. And again, it's at no cost to them. And there are significant channel incentives for you to execute on CTAPs for your customers. So those are the 4 best practices. I really wanted to mention those because again, the partners that are serious about building a very large business with Fortinet, they're doing all 4 of those things, focusing on Partner Portal, focusing on NSE certifications, they're leveraging Fortinet Rewards to stay very profitable, and they're executing on CTAPs. If we go to the next slide, I think that is it. You can just build this out, all good. There we go. All right, well, Michael, that is what I had. I will take some questions if they're there, give away some shoes. If not, we can head over to the demo.
Yeah, actually, we do have a couple of questions. Great information, and really thanks everybody for your patience. It's truly in the vein of the holiday season here. And all right, so here we go. How does Fortinet plan to take on zero trust applications like Total, if I'm saying that correctly, which is trying to take away UTM sales in the SMB market? I've been selling Fortinet for over 10 years and would like to keep going with you guys.
Yeah, with that, I mean, our SASE offering, we had an acquisition this year in 2020, and we are almost at the point where we're ready to roll out that offering. We're looking at probably a late Q1 date for that. So I would just ask for your patience for a couple more months, and we will be able to unveil the larger strategy to address zero trust, to help your customers and to keep you on board, so to speak, with Fortinet and to keep you profitable.
Excellent. All right. Next up, it's in here somewhere. What happens if there is a vulnerability in your technology? Is a multi-vendors environment not a better layer for maximum protection, Phil?
I'll defer on that one to some degree to Alan and Lou. That might be a good segue over to them. I mean, the whole question is one of not just the vulnerability, but what is going to provide better protection? Is it the tightly integrated, intuitive platform where information, if it's an all Fortinet environment, where information is natively and easily passed across your end customer's environment in a way that is leveraging the millions and millions of sensors effectively that Fortinet has from our large, customer base around the globe? Is that better than a multi-vendor approach where there's not intuitive communication for those products? So it's at first glance, it's a hard one to answer. Sometimes there can be some emotion, built into that question as well, because sometimes our companies, sometimes our sales careers have been built on, one model versus another. I can say when I was, working at companies like, Soft Choice and SHI, there was very much a vibe of, going with the multi-vendor solution. But, it's one of the reasons that I came over here is seeing the power of a portfolio that is so tightly integrated and intuitive, and it is just so much more simple for the, IT generalist at a small and mid-sized company to have more success with, one platform versus many that are, attempted to be bolted on with each other. But whenever Lou and Alan start to present, they might have something else to add on to that.
Yeah, indeed we will.
Before we get over there, Lou, just a quick note for our attendees. If you look over in a chat area, you'll see a link. We have a resource page that we created, which has a number of different assets on there for you, including a report on SMB cybersecurity priorities and challenges, plus some video and some other info. So feel free to click on that and bookmark it. Also, another question came in, Phil, is there a SOC solution?
I'm not at liberty to say at this point. January, we will have a lot more information about that.
Well, that's a cool answer. All right. So, what do you want to do, Phil? Are we ready to shift gears to a demo?
Let's shift.
All right. Do you want to tee these guys up?
Yeah, Lou, you wanna take it from the top and just let the folks know what they can expect to see, how long it'll take to go through this, really hands-on, up-close look at the integration between these three products.
Absolutely, appreciate that, Phil and Michael. Again, thanks to the folks over at Channel Pro and Exclusive Networks for organizing this event. My name is Lou Gencarelli, as we mentioned at the top. I'm on our Secure Wireless and Access Technologies team, our SWAT team, if you do the acronym there. And we focus in on our APs and our switching specifically, what I'll be covering today. All right, so just to address one of the recent questions, or one of the last questions that we just kind of went into, our view on the traditional access layer approach, that multi-vendor approach, if you will, that rainbow rack over there that you may see over on the right-hand side. We believe that the complexity is the enemy. If you offer a broad attack surface, then you're as vulnerable as your weakest link. We just saw in the headlines today, one of the major cybersecurity vendors out there in the industry actually just got hacked. So I'm certain that the channel partners out on this call here today offer various different components, of this rainbow rack. But with that many different offerings, you have various different upgrade cycles. Everybody is standards based, but everybody's interpretation of the standards, may be slightly off. So when there's problems out there, where do you start? So our view is to try to eliminate that complexity, collapse that rainbow rack down into the Fortigate itself, and then, oh, by the way, include a switch controller and a Wi-Fi controller as part of the offering, so that all the intelligence is kind of baked into that single platform, offering a single user interface to learn, one platform to manage, that single pane of glass, if you will, again, to ultimately reduce the potential for configuration error, and of course, lower operational training and other types of expenses that go along with managing 6, 7, 10 vendors on a single network. So what it ultimately affords you is that security fabric, as we like to call it, where we can automatically, and this is a view of the actual Fortigate's interface itself for folks that are not familiar, as you plug in the various different components of the solution, the Fortigate being that switch controller and that access point controller, wireless LAN controller, it's automatically going to discover those devices as they come on board and allow you to graphically lay out the physical topology of your network. So you kind of see a view there of the various different components and even the hosts that are either connected wirelessly or wired into the network. We can bring in the floor plans of your facilities and drag and drop your access points onto the floor plans and get that whole red light, yellow light, green light kind of operating condition, mouse over an access point, understand the number of devices that are associated, what bands and channels the things are operating on. So it allows you to quickly react when you hit a red light situation where you may be oversubscribing a particular access point. You can quickly react to the situation at hand there. Same thing on the bandwidth front. Being able to drill down into particular interfaces, whether it be the WAN interface, a LAN interface. SSIDs actually become virtual interfaces on the Fortigate. So being able to understand exactly what the traffic patterns are and the bandwidth demands on those particular interfaces is certainly something that you look to on a day-to-day basis. Similarly, understanding who your top talkers are, right? So here's the sources of all my traffic, and I can show that in the bubble chart that you see over on the left. The bigger the bubble, the more of a bandwidth hog, if you will, those individual hosts may be, or I can see the tabular view over on the right. So really giving you understanding of where my traffic is coming from. And then the types of traffic and having application awareness and visibility is hugely important. We recognize over 3,000 different applications today, and giving you the ability to not only understand exactly what's happening on your network, but be able to react. So you kind of see in the middle of the chart there, BitTorrent is one of the peer-to-peer protocols that is being consumed, in real time on this particular view. And of course, I can look over various different time frames throughout the day or the week or the month or whatever it may be. But having the ability to understand exactly what's happening and then quickly react to and implement policies that might either rate limit or outright block specific types of traffic, or on the other side, prioritize and give higher quality of service for, say, voice over IP calls. These are core components in order to deliver a positive end user experience. So having that visibility and being able to react and very quickly write policies to affect those applications is some of the core the core benefits that Fortinet brings to the table. On the threat map, we can give you visibility into where your traffic's may be flowing. So if you're headquartered here in North America, you have a couple dozen offices, amongst the states, but you see a ton of traffic, heading out to Southeast Asia, perhaps that just raises a couple of alarm bells. So understanding where your traffic is flowing is just another capability we bring to the table under that single pane of glass. Then finally, getting into what we're doing on the wireless side, right? So wireless has become our primary means of connecting to the network these days, right? So understanding the health of the access points, channel utilization rates, what rogues may be in the area, how well my clients are participating or associating onto the network and performing on the network, where there may be failures or attempts to log into our network, making you aware of all these various different, day-to-day operating type conditions, and then allowing you to very easily click into any one of these widgets and get deeper understanding and granular, knowledge about what's happening real time. So these are just some of the visibility that you'd see from a day-to-day perspective. And there's that physical topology view that I mentioned before. But with that switch controller that I mentioned that's built in, here's a great way. You don't have to unbox switches and put IP addresses on them and make sure you're tagging your trunk ports with all the various different VLANs, right? You basically just plug them all in a Fortinet world. That switch controller running on the Fortigate is going to automatically discover all your switches. It's going to graphically display them, as you see here on the screen here. All the interconnection links will automatically be drawn in. You can mouse over individual ports and understand, what level of power is being delivered, and the various different VLANs that may be carried on individual trunks or ports. So very quickly understanding exactly what's going on in your environment. So leveraging all that and taking all that foundation, Phil talked about some of the advantages from a threat intelligence perspective that Fortinet brings to the table, with having 500,000 different customers, firewalls reporting up into our FortiGuard labs, right? Our super knock in the sky, if you will, where we have our developers that are writing, antivirus responses and zero-day threat signatures and responses. So all of our APs are kind of phoning home to the cloud, and as part of a Fortigate subscription, you're automatically going to get this intelligence real time, right? So our FortiGuard labs will keep your FortiGates in sync with the latest protection, known in the industry, right? So the ability is now the gate knows about all the potential threats that may exist out in the world. Any infected or suspicious acting device can quickly be detected by the Fortigate and help you improve your security posture. So, the idea is somebody brings in a BYOD device, or perhaps even a corporate-owned device, and the security fabric, whether it be wired or wireless, is automatically going to detect the anomaly on that device, whether it be a virus or just peculiar behavior, and flag it automatically. And then perhaps quarantine that device, either wirelessly or on the wired ports itself, so that device is no longer a threat to the network, right? So that's really kind of the value and the benefit that we bring to the table, keeping you as up to date and as protected as humanly possible without any end user administrative access. So I can get into some of our products. I know we may be tight on time because we ran over, but just know that from a wireless perspective, we are offering all the latest and greatest. AC has kind of been out there for a while. AC Wave 2 never really adopted, but Wi-Fi 6 being the new soup du jour, and 6E soon to be released from Fortinet the top of the year. We're staying on track with all the various different wireless offerings in the industry. AX is going to be a big improvement for a lot of your customers, kind of like what 11N did probably about 10 years ago. AX is really making leaps and bounds forward, really taking the best parts from our 4G and LTE networks and applying them onto the wireless network, and optimizing performance, but really building it out for high density environments, because pretty much every device these days is getting network access wirelessly. Our 40AP, our Universal series, or our Unified Threat Management series, is actually adding in web filtering, IPS, botnet control, application control, antivirus right there on the AP. We build in application-specific integrated circuits right on the access point that can handle these processing functions right on the access point, again, tied back into our FortiGuard labs. Kind of just flipping through, just letting you know that we do have network analysis and the analyzers built into the FortiGate as well. So no longer having to roll out trucks and sending people on site. You can now remotely understand exactly what's happening in the air on the wireless side of things. Now, on the switching side, there's really not an area where we're not comfortable playing. We have rugged outdoor switches, our introductory level 100 series, more enterprise class 2, 3, and 400 families, and then our data center and our aggregation switches on the 1000 and 3000 series. So by all means, reach out to us when it comes time to help scope and size a network. We offer switches from 8 ports all the way up to 48 ports. Some with power, some with the PoE plus. You name it. The new mGig standard is also supported. Even introduced some new 10 gig options on the introductory level. So a lot of benefits from utilizing a FortiLink, which is our switch management protocol to run your networks. Zero touch provisioning. Again, that centralized configuration management. utilizing that security fabric. So we're all talking the same language, so you're always protected regardless of what type of device you're utilizing, be wired or wireless. Easy to stack switches virtually in a wide range of models to fit any need that you may have. And then even layering in network access control functionality. This is brand new for us. So having our switches being able to, switches and APs being able to perform the network access control roles. So endpoints come online, the gates and APs are automatically going to detect them, identify what type of operating system they are, looking up into FortiGuard labs if necessary to do that device identification, and then based on policies, enforce network access either at the edge of the network via wired or wireless. So that's just real quick on a high level of what we're bringing to the table, and I can kind of dig in real quick onto the live demonstration portion of the discussion. So hopefully you can see my screen. I gave you a brief view of what a live network looked like on some of the slides. So this is actually just my little lab network here, and you can see everything that gets plugged in is automatically going to be discovered by the Fortigate. I'm actually using our 3G, 4G extender as one of my WAN interfaces, so I can actually do load balancing on both my wired and my wireless LTE connection. I can do software-defined networking, wide area networking on that front, and route particular applications over either WAN link. I can link aggregate a couple of switches. I have various different access points, several different devices that are associated to access points. Kind of see I even have a device that's under quarantine in this particular environment. So a very granular understanding of all the interconnectivity of the various different components of your network is available real quick for you, just at a glance. Our Wi-Fi and switch controller has that built in, again, wireless and switch controller. Having your switches automatically be detected by the FortiGate itself, and then the topology view drawn out. You can see here I'm using a multi-chassis link aggregation, so I'm in my distribution layer, if you will, in my small network. Then I have a couple of different smaller switches, and just kind of shows the interconnectivity amongst those various different components. You can drill down into and actually see the port level interfaces as well. But my access points are also automatically displayed here. You can see I have a half a dozen or so. We do support point-to-point mesh networking as well. So I have an AP out in my shed in my backyard, tunneled back into my access point here in my office. It just gives you the flexibility to deploy things either wired or wirelessly. You can drill down into a particular access point itself, get into visual diagnostics and learn a little bit more about the APs. This happens to be a 3 radio access point. You can see that radio 2 is set into dedicated monitor mode. And depending on the model of AP, we can have all 3 radios service clients, or we can dedicate a particular radio to a monitoring functionality. And you can quickly go through and understand the statistics about this AP. It only happens to be one client here. You can see the interfering SSID. So if you have companies operating above or below you, or adjacent to you, you'll be able to quickly identify what channels they may be interfering with you on. But I mentioned that the spectrum analysis functionality, right? So you have the ability, without having to do a truck roll or to purchase expensive spectrum analyzer type equipment, to just utilize that monitor radio on the access points themselves and get a real sense of any signal interference, or the load or channel utilization, also known as the duty cycle, that may be operating in your environment. So this is a real-time view. Luckily, a fairly clean RF environment here in my lab. But if you were to have a tough environment, you would see much more red and yellow and green type feedback coming through the spectrum analyzer. But again, just allows you to remotely understand exactly what's happening in your environment. And then quickly just flip back into the floor plans. You can see that this AP happens to be in my daughter's bedroom, and you can see exactly just real time how many clients are associated and what the operating conditions are in this particular environment. So just real down and dirty, quick overview of what's going on from an AP and a switching management perspective. We can certainly get into much deeper dive on these demonstrations, should the opportunity come up. So we'd love to work with you, moving forward. This is kind of why we're here on the SWAT team anyways, to help enable you folks to resell our equipment more effectively. So other questions that might have come in, Michael? That's really all I had from a live demonstration perspective.
All right, just a reminder to folks, we would love to hear your questions. There is a Q&A area down at the bottom of your browser window. All right, here we go. Now, some of these also came in, Phil, when you were on, so I'll just kind of throw these out to you guys, and how about, whoever wants to handle it can do so. All right, first up, are there any plans to assist us SMBs with additional Fortinet tools that would give us features that don't require us to purchase tools, like expensive tools like Ekahau, if I'm saying that right, which are pretty expensive?
Yeah, by all means, that Ekahau spectrum analyzer is something I just demonstrated there. We actually build in that monitor radio on the access point that allows you to get that real-time view. So by all means, that is something that we have baked into the solution. We also do offer our Forti Planner tool. It's nothing that's been demonstrated today, but we make that available to our partners to help do predictive designs. So we can import floor plans there, select the appropriate model of access point, and then showcase how the RF would propagate in that heat map type of view. And then give you a nice bill of materials at the end from the reporting standpoint out of that tool. So by all means, yes, we can replicate much of what Ekahau offers.
Excellent. All right, next up, do you have IDS and IPS on Fortinet?
Absolutely, we do. That's also built into the solution. We can turn on our whips and WIDs on our wireless radios and provide that extra layer of security for all the commonly known wireless attacks that may be coming across the air.
All right, next up in the SMB space, it was FortiGates, then APs, then switches. What's the next most common thing to add to our Fortinet stack for an MSP?
Yeah, so just sorry, Phil, go ahead if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, I was just going to mention endpoint would be one area to really look at. And then I would also say centralized management with our products FortiManager and FortiAnalyzer. That would be, in my opinion, the next best step. But Lou, what do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. Having to manage, 10, 20, 30 sites, the FortiManager and FortiAnalyzer, being able to aggregate all those logs are certainly key components to the solution. And then I briefly touched on it from a SWAT perspective, our FortiExtender offering, right? So you don't necessarily have to have that wired internet connection to offer, offer internet services or network access. We can do it wirelessly. So today we're offering LTE-based solutions. You'll see very soon from Fortinet our first foray into the 5G space with our extender.
Well, all right. It looks like we got through all of the questions, and just a quick reminder too that we've got the our partner portal page link that we've put into the chat area. So please take a look at that. I'm going to encourage you to click on that and bookmark that before we wrap up today. And then also, if you scroll up in the chat area, you'll see that earlier we put a resource page there too with a lot of great information, and we encourage you to get that open in your in a new tab for that. All right, well, Phil, looks like we're pretty much wrapped up here, but I want to know if your team has any other information to impart on us today.
I would just reiterate the importance of talking with your customers about growth and always being the different solutions, the bills of materials, in the context for the customer of how these things can help them grow. That's number one. And then number two, so many of the conversations are going to be led with the Fortigate in that secure office networking. So the more that you can, understand where the customer is or the prospect is in their journey or timeline to refresh that network security, that's going to be opening a lot of doors for you and a lot of profitability for you.
Excellent. And Lou?
No, that's all from my perspective. But again, please don't hesitate to reach out to your local Fortinet account team. They know how to involve the SWAT team when you have your switching and wireless opportunities. So we look forward to working with you folks in the future.
That sounds great. And just a reminder that we will also be sending out follow-up info and a link to the recording tomorrow. And that link is going to include our whole presentation today. We had, a great first half with Phil and a lot of tremendous overview. And then Lou, what I'll call a high-speed, high-performance art on his demo and other things too. All that's going to be in a recording for you. And Phil, any updates on my shoes?
Yeah, you're Michael, you're definitely getting a pair. And then offline, if you want to, unless you can look at the panelists that asked the questions, those first 3 questions, if you have their names and are at liberty to share, please do so. Or if you want to take it offline with me and let me know who, we can get in touch with them and make it happen.
That sounds like a great plan, and we will do that. And that'll go right under someone's, holiday tree or wherever they may want it. But that's great, Phil. Well, thank you so much. So Phil, Wilhelm, you and your entire team, thank you so much. It was a really great session today. We appreciate everybody's patience and great questions. It really made for a very dynamic event today. So again, you'll see a link to the recording, hopefully tomorrow in your inbox, and you can relive it over and over again during the holidays. All right, Phil, thanks so much. We really appreciate your partnership.
Back at you. Thank you all so much. Cheers.
All right. Take care, everybody. We're all set. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.